Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Institute for Personal Development, where total consciousness is the new frontier. Kriya Yoga is the union of the individual with the divine. Join us as we explore the practices that initiate this process.
Well, good morning. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. Let's talk consciousness. I am your hostess, Lisa Winton, and with me is Kenny Toy, also known as Swami Jayananda, founder of Institute for Personal Development, located here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Well, good morning, Swami. Thanks for being here today. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in today. On the Voice of Yoga, we will talk about National Prayer Day, and it was actually held on May 7th of this year. We will explore some of the different approaches to prayer, such as, is prayer doing nothing and feeling like you are doing something? To thought is an energy capable of producing effects. Is prayer just another opium for the masses? We will share our take on the concept of prayer, not as asking, but as praying on the divine. So, Swami, I looked up on the website for the National Prayer Day, and their slogan that they have on the front page is investing in hope, transforming our nation through prayer. What do you think about that?
Well, again, it's a nice string of words. It's how we translate it that is really going to determine the outcome. Because one of the things we always talk about, there's a big difference between change and transform. And to confuse the two or not have a clear distinction between the two can be very problematic, because anything can change your life. Change is inevitable. That's what's happening on a dualistic level. That's constant. But to transform, then you have to connect to this invisible, intangible, unchanging dimension of reality. And so, now what is it that we mean by the word pray? Because in our model, there's a big difference between P-R-A-Y, which is oftentimes thought of as asking for something, or talking to God, kind of a description. And our take on it is that it really should be P-R-E-Y, just like foxes prey on rabbits, that the human preys on the divine. And of course, that is the one thing that could transform your life. That is the one thing that could definitely transform the world. But you have to have a clear understanding of what these words mean and what is it going to look like when I'm actually doing that.
I understand what you're saying about that praying and praying. I love that. There is the slogan for this year's National Prayer Day is, hear the cry and the prayer that your servant is praying in your presence this day. Now, they're using P-R-A-Y, but when it says hear the cry, is that kind of like what we do when we're doing mantra, when we say, you have more than one person meditating or praying, and it amplifies that energy. Do you think that's what they mean by that? Hear the cry and the prayer that your servant is praying in your presence this day?
Yeah, that could possibly be exactly what that is because like we say, that thoughts that are in phase exponentially increase the amplitude of that thought. So the more that you can empathize, or the more that you can understand what it is that someone is asking for, and of course if you emit the same thought, that will exponentially increase the amplitude of that thought. which, thought is an energy, and it's capable of producing effects. But it's all measurable based on the amount of strength we emit them with. So it's this power, this amplitude, that gives thoughts the power to affect changes. So anytime that you can try and get in sync with the phase of a thought, you're actually empowering that thought, if that answered your question.
I have a question for you. What's the difference between manifesting and praying? Like maybe I want to manifest a parking space in downtown Boston, and I also want to pray on the divine. So when you're manifesting, obviously you put thought and intention, you visualize it. Well, don't we do the same thing when we pray?
Well, to answer your question, I don't see them as the same thing, because to me the whole concept of praying on the divine is an internal dynamic that actually will give me belief. Because if my whole sense of well-being is totally established on the simple fact that I have nothing, and I feel connected to something that's pure, powerful, and sacred. Now, when I start to emit a thought, that thought will be emitted with the power of intention, because I believe that, I want a parking spot downtown, kind of a thing. So I can emit the thought with the power of intention, which will increase its ability to create the desired outcome. But like I said, I don't think the asking for is the same as praying on the divine. I see them as separate things that can work together quite well.
Okay, thank you for that. I understand that too. So manifesting for the physical obviously is different than wanting to become, have this union with the divine through praying, P-R-E-Y. So I understand that. Now, I have gone through the website that I had mentioned earlier for National Prayer Day, and they said they have steps, in how to pray for God or to God. And one is God's purpose, peace, and life. Step 2 is our problem, meaning humanity's problem, is a separation. And this is what I thought was interesting. And they write, we chose to disobey God and go our own willful way. We still make this choice today. This results in separation from God. And you have said something similar to that in our Theory 1 and Theory 2 classes.
Yeah, again, it's all going to come down to how you interpret these words, like what is God? And what is separation from God? Because again, that's where, say, for example, the word religion means to relink. Yoga means union. So what does it look like when I'm separated from this concept of God? Because again, for a lot of people, God is an imagined image. It's, some cosmic puppeteer, some invisible man in the sky, or that is not optimal as far as if you understand what we call the physics of spirituality. Because you're drawing off of a resource of energy that is dualistic, and the whole intention of being connected to the void or the nothing, which will offer the individual solution to any problem. So if you're drawing from the wrong energy field, the concept in the Bible was false gods. And the concept in the Yoga Sutra was avidya, ignorance, mistaking the impermanent for the permanent. But the whole thing of feeling connected to something that's pure, powerful, and sacred, gives you belief. It's belief that will give your thoughts the power of intention. But, just to recognize that I'm separated from God, just as as a string of words can be obscure. And, if you don't understand how to interpret that, you can actually, again, you're asking this cosmic puppeteer for a favor, and everything is going to be dependent on whether you get it or you don't. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're connected to the life force. Just because you got whatever it is you asked for doesn't mean that, my prayer was answered, kind of a thing.
So in the Bible, it is stated that while Jesus was praying, he was asked, Lord, teach us to pray. So now you're saying we need to pray on the divine, P-R-E-Y. So how do we go ahead and do that? Let's put it into practical application.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when the apostles asked Jesus, Lord, teach us how to pray, do you really think that they were asking Jesus to tell them how to ask God for whatever it is that I think I want? Or do you think that it was really, Lord, teach us how to use the availability of this inexhaustible resource to establish my sense of well-being? And I think that's really kind of like the difference between, what we're doing as opposed to what I think the average person is doing.
And I found another quote from the Bible that I wanted to say on the show, and it is, as believers, we can pray in the Spirit, even in language that may be unknown to us, but is fully known to God. And I think that's pretty powerful because, we always say that the universe doesn't understand English. It understands, pictures or intent and belief. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, to me, the language of spirit is silence. So it has really nothing to do with duality. And the way that you maximize the experience of life is to have this relationship with this resource, this void, this nothing. And you establish your whole sense of well-being based on that relationship, but you're not drawing off of the outside world anymore. So you're actually, there's this kind of conversion of a person that goes from wanting what they get, or getting what they want, to a person that is totally happy with what they have. And a lot of it's very subtle, and it's hard sometimes to make the distinction. It's like, well, what energy field am I drawing from? Always comes down to, again, like what we always say, what do I desire?
Now, when we're praying and trying to get this union with the divine, why do you think that that's something that has just kind of gone by the wayside with the masses? I mean, do people feel like it doesn't work, or because that's what this country supposedly was founded upon, was the relationship with God, and God we trust.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's this primary relationship. It's this union with the divine that's the missing piece. And then, of course, all of the things that it produces as a result. Because hopefully, if you reflect on it, you would want to think that the founding fathers of this nation were people that had a better understanding of this union with the divine. And the benefit of the connection is that it initiates this progressive cycle, that you literally start to transcend the limited perspective of just seeing yourself as separate. It's the expansion of the identity beyond the limits of self-absorption, preoccupation with personal desire, that gives you the capacity to start to see this connectedness with a greater whole. And again, that changes your exchange of energy so that you're not drawing off of it. It's not just about I, me, mine. That you start to recognize that on some level, like we're all in this together. And what I'm putting out is what I'm getting back. And it's not just about hooray for me and too bad for you, which again, that's a great description for what they call the optimist, the one who tells you to cheer up because everything's going great in their life.
Well, thank you for that explanation, but I think we're going to hold on to that thought and pause to hear a word from our sponsors. So, listeners, we will be back with you in a few moments.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate.
If you are looking for a samadhi-based experience, IPD Kriya Yoga has the goods. A complete yoga program that includes the practices and the process. Starting with the separation from mother, including the labors and tasks of the hero and the return as a whole person. Practice makes perfect only when practice is whole. Kriya Yoga is a path of action, knowledge, and devotion. Samadhi, or total consciousness, is experienced by knowing and doing with devotion. Call or click now and get started. 603-929-0303 or www.ipdtransform.com. Namaste.
Welcome back. For those of you just joining us, you're listening to The Voice of Yoga, and we are talking consciousness. So, Swami, we're talking about praying, celebrating National Prayer Day. That was May 7th. And I'm on a section of the website, and they have a page that's called Why Pray. And it starts off by saying, we pray because, number one, we love God. Number two, we depend on God. God is our source. He is our life. And number three, I find interesting, we need to resist temptation. And in it they have a quote, watch and pray lest you enter into temptation, from the Bible. And then it says, much sin is the result of the sin of prayerlessness. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the whole concept of, to love God is a really important part. That's exactly what we talk about, to desire the void or the nothing, to love God, to feel connected to the life force. And the whole concept of temptation, it's like, well, what is that? Because to me, I always look at the temptation. I go back to the fall from Eden in the Bible, and I think, here's Adam and Eve, and they're in the Garden of Eden. They're in the realms of paradise, and this concept of the devil, tempts them with particles or waves, with matter and mind, and they don't know what it is that they have. So maybe they could be tempted, but for somebody that has come out of the realms of suffering and decay and has now rejoined with the life force, they know all three different perspectives of life. And it's kind of like, I don't know, I always think of one time I broke my leg and I was in a cast, and the whole time that I was in that cast, I used crutches to get around. And once they took that cast off of my leg and I was able to walk, I never really went back. I never really was tempted to go and get those crutches. You know what I mean? And so once I think you taste the benefit of the life force, you know, I mean, I don't really think there's that much of a pull anymore because you know by experience the difference. And then, of course, you know, I mean, you're now connected to something that's pure, powerful, and sacred. You have a mind, and you have a clearer understanding of how you're manifesting your reality. So from a perspective of prayer now, you know, this concept of asking for what you want, you have the benefit of belief. And so you're more in a position of being the creator than the victim. You know, so as far as the concept of temptation, I don't see it as being all that strong.
I view temptation, after studying with you and, you know, attending the Theory 1 and the Theory 2 classes, temptation to me now in my world would be like anything that tries to pull me away from, you know, seeking my union with the divine. You know, whether it's, not that I get tempted by this, but I'm just using this as an example, like, you know, a Snickers bar, or maybe even wanting to make money for the sake of making money. You know, those types of things is what I view as temptations now. So therefore, if we maintain this connection with the divine like you're talking about, then these temptations really become obsolete. They don't mean anything, right? You make everything smaller.
Oh, exactly. You know, it's even kind of like like what you were saying. I mean, some people use the expression, you know, money is the root of all evil. Well, that's not the origin. It's not the original, I want to say, declaration of that statement. It was the love of money which was the root of all evil. You know, it's the concept of the false god. When money becomes your god, when money becomes, you know, your heart's desire. Because the heart, you know, the body's feeling state is where our power lies, desire. And it's what we desire that is going to determine our fate. So the temptation is, you know, it's coming from all of these different energy fields, particles, waves. I love what C.S. Lewis said about God. You know, God couldn't tempt. And the reason was because of the original sin, you know, that we come in with this pattern. And like attracts like, so we look for particles or waves. We look for duality. And that's where the pull is. But once you've rebirthed your body in the life force, and you now love God or desire nothing, then, of course, there is really there's not much pull anymore. The pull is towards the void or the nothing. Now you desire the void. You love God. And the thought of going back is really kind of nominal at that point. And that's where I think, you know, our programs are really geared towards actualizing this experience, you know, changing the pattern of your body, changing the reward circuits in your brain so that you literally desire God, that you love God, that you feel connected to the life force, that you're addicted to the life force. Very different dynamic.
I believe that some people out there might think that they have to give up whatever it is in their life, to have this relationship with the divine. And it's really not the giving up of anything. You can still have your house and your car, right? It's not like you have to give up, and live in a cave. I think we talked about this a few shows ago. And it's just about changing how you think about the divine and building that relationship in what you desire.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. But I mean, this concept of renouncing the world is a really important thing to understand. This whole thing of purging the body of this original sin, this pattern we come in with. Once you have purged the body of its dependency upon the outside world, duality, fear and limitation, then you don't want to abstain. That the whole key to a successful religious or spiritual experience is substitution. That you actually now substitute a different source of sustenance to produce the same feeling in the body that I'm happy. Because being spiritual isn't deprivation, it's indulgence. Only it's indulgence in a different source of sustenance. It's an indulgence in a different energy field. And again, it has a different return. That's why we make a clear distinction between change and transformation. That's why I think most of the literature says there's only one truth, there's only one God, there's only one yoga, there's only one religion, there's only one number one need. And everything else was what they called a sin. It missed the mark. So in this model, we recognize that it's not just an intellectual accomplishment. This whole concept of the heart. People always now, it seems to be one of the big buzzwords, it's heartfelt. It's, that this whole thing of desire, those people that are actually trying to stop desire are trying to do something that's impossible. But to desire the void or the nothing is, the way the Buddha had discovered how it all works.
And this is why I enjoy our Theory 2 classes so much, because you help us come to this understanding. Because I think we have to understand the concept first. I think there has to be some kind of intellectualism there to at least begin with. And then you got to start experiencing it in a physical way, like you said, like we talk about purifying the body. So I think that's all important, is to have this understanding. And that's why our Theory 2 classes, I think, are just so crucial for attendance, because people can really get yoga into their life and not just on the mat.
Oh, exactly. And again, through repetition comes absorption, because I think sometimes that's one of the biggest barriers are the people that are still drawing from duality and trying to uphold the conduct that is associated with being connected to the divine. Somebody who is trying to do good as opposed to somebody who is being good. And to be able to make that clear distinction. So I think with that, I will wish everybody a good day, and namaste, and I'll give it back to you.
So in closing, listeners, don't forget to visit our website, and don't forget to follow us on all the social media that we have out there. And you can also join us on Powwow for our online classes you can access through the website. And be sure to tune in next week. We're going to explore hardship, success, and the game of life. So I want to thank you, listeners, for tuning into our program today and helping us celebrate National Prayer Day. And listen to our program, Voice of Yoga. And like I try to do every radio show, please, if you like our show, share it, click it. Together we can change the world. So this is Lisa Winton along with Swami Jayananda signing off. Have a wonderful Kriya Yoga kind of day. Namaste.